welcome this morning our guest speaker, Chief Commissioner Shane Hatton, and look forward to hearing about your story, experiences and message for our college community. We welcome Caitlin, our firefighter captain, and Daniel, our liturgy captain, to lead us in acknowledgement of country and prayer.
In the spirit of reconciliation, we pause to acknowledge the significance of this gathering on the traditional land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. In recognising the sacred connection to the earth, we honour and pay our respects to elders who have guided us in the past, those who guide us in the present, and those whose wisdom is yet to unfold. We extend our respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders present and within our wider college community. In the spirit of growth, we draw inspiration from the teachings of Jesus to cultivate the environment that embraces the journey of authentic reconciliation in our great southern land.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. God of love, as we gather to celebrate Father's Day, we ask for your blessing on the men who have raised, nurtured, and encouraged us. We thank our fathers for their sacrifices, example, and guidance. May their influence continue to shape us into compassionate, courageous, and considerate individuals. We also ask your blessing on those who have been father figures in our lives. May they feel the love and gratitude we hold for them. Bless new and future fathers with the wisdom to raise faithful and loving children. Remind them that treating their partners with respect is one of the greatest gifts they can give. We pray for our fathers who have passed, trusting they are now in your loving embrace. May our families be reunited in your heavenly kingdom. In union with St. Joseph, we ask for your blessings today and always. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. We would like to invite our college principal, Ms. Chapman, to welcome us this morning.
Good morning, everyone. It's so lovely to see you here. Very warm welcome to Chief Commissioner Shane Hatton. We're privileged to have you here and really thrilled, so thank you so much for your time. We're looking forward to hearing from you soon. Also, just a very warm welcome to our fathers, to our grandfathers, and to our father figures here today. It is really a thrill to have you at our Father's Day breakfast. Also, welcome all of our students and all of our staff members are here as well. It's been a tradition at Emmaus that we celebrate Father's Day a week earlier than Father's Day. Not only that we don't clash with the primary schools, but also to give you a whole week's lead up and celebrations of Father's Day. So reap the benefits of it. You are significant role models for your children, and your presence here today says volumes to them. It says how much you value Emmaus College, it says how much you value their education, and it says how much you value the time to be with them. So thank you for being great role models for them. We are blessed at Emmaus to have amazing families, and as parents you are great role models, and I'm sure that your children will express that to you in the coming week and celebrate you as their father and father figure. So thank you also for your unwavering support of us at Emmaus. We appreciate it. We thank you for being here. It really builds our community so beautifully. So I hope you enjoy this event. And now I'll pass back to our college captains who are going to introduce our guest speaker. Thanks, Miranda, and thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. It is a great privilege to welcome Chief Commissioner Shane Hatton as our guest speaker for today's Father's Day event. Chief Commissioner Hatton has dedicated over 4 decades of service to Victoria Police, beginning his career as a cadet and rising through the ranks to become the 23rd Chief Commissioner in 2020. His extensive experience spans diverse areas of policing, including criminal investigations, internal affairs, and counter-terrorism operations.
Throughout his career, Chief Commissioner Hatton has been at the forefront of some of the most critical issues facing our community, including leading the response to significant counter-terrorism and managing emergencies operation during the summer bushfires and the COVID-19 pandemic. He has also been instrumental in modernising Victoria Police's emergency management protocols and strengthening the state's counter-terrorism capabilities.
In addition to his professional achievements, Chief Commissioner Patton is committed to continuous learning, holding multiple tertiary qualifications and currently pursuing a law degree. His leadership, dedication to public service, and commitment to personal growth serve as an inspiring example to all of us, especially the students in our community.
Please join us in welcoming Chief Commissioner Shane Patton, a leader who embodies the values of service, integrity and resilience.
Good morning, everyone. I suppose when you describe as having 4 decades in something, it means you're old, no longer young at least. But thanks for having me. I thought what I'd do is briefly outline the responsibilities of my role, go through some of the responsibilities that I do have, speak briefly about some of the challenges facing Victoria Police, and then talk about my career as well. So bear with me on that. I'll try and do it in about 20 minutes and see where we go to. Then happy to answer any questions. I became the 23rd Chief Commissioner of Victoria Police. We've only had 23 since 1853 when we were founded. And that was on the 27th of June 2020, 3 months into COVID, which was a very interesting time, I can assure you. But briefly, if you think you know Victoria Police, and you may well know, I'm sorry about my voice, I'm recovering from a bit of laryngitis. If you think you know Victoria Police, at its peak we're a staff of 23,000 people, and that's police, protective services officers, police custody officers, public servants, forensic officers, a whole range of different people. It's around 150 jobs in one, it's quite amazing. And I was thrilled that the students said that I had some tertiary qualifications, but they didn't also mention I left school at year 10, and that was going to be it for me. And then I became a police cadet, and they in effect paid you back then to do a bit of schooling. So I finished year 11, but never finished high school, but saw the need to go on and get some qualifications. So I ended up doing a master's degree and a whole lot of other things through uni, as well as internal courses. So when I was described as having those qualifications, I quite appreciate it, so thanks very much. I think from my point of view, from being the Chief Commissioner of Victoria Police, you only have stewardship of this role for a period of time. I've got, in effect, a contract for 5 years. And so what you do when you go into these offices, you go in with a view to say, what's the difference that I can make to this organisation, and by default to Victoria, because Victoria Police is all about community safety. From our point of view, I have the responsibilities for crime generally, and when you think about crime, think about drugs, shootings, murders, a range of different crimes. Any crime you think of, online crime, child exploitation, terrorism. I have responsibility for that within my organisation. We have responsibility for road safety across Victoria, as well as public order. And public order is a significant issue for us, obviously with what I would term the fraying of social cohesion that we've been seeing since the 7th of October last year, when the Hamas-Israel conflict began. I think one of the key responsibilities I have is a national and international responsibility, which I didn't know was going to be the case when I got in the role. I have to regularly liaise and support other counterparts right across the nation in terms of how they police and how we police, and we're united across Australia as well as internationally with the terrorism world. I'm required to work with government on a range of things, developing legislation and looking at reforms that can be preventative as well as responsive. And it's a really interesting gig, what I get to do. You have to know a bit about everything. it is the greatest job in the world, but one day you're talking about developing strategic policies, about making the community safe, about child sexual exploitation, how you go to manage registered sex offenders, or whatever. Every morning I get briefed and about what's happened overnight, and then walk out of some area where you've had a press conference and get door stopped and someone will ask you about an incident that happened in Glenroy, and you're expected to actually know what that incident is. So you have to understand a bit about actually everything. And for instance, in terms of road safety, if you like, last year was our, and when I speak today about statistics or figures, please don't think that I don't know their people. That is the pivotal thing for me. They relate to people. So when I talk about crime statistics or people, they're victims, they're offenders, they're people who've passed away or been seriously injured or that we've been able to help. So a key thing for me is an expectation that you will know over a $4.4 billion business with all of these people. You're expected to know who's done something, way out in the back blocks, who's made a mistake, someone who's been rude to someone, to understand the nature of road policing and, for instance, understand what the numbers of this year were at 185 people who've tragically passed away on the roads versus 178 last year, so we're 7 higher. And last year was our worst year in 15 years in road trauma, and it's 25 or 27 above the 5-year average. You have to know all of these things, so it's very much ongoing. It's a 25-8 job. It is fantastic though, can I say, and I do love it. But a key thing for me is the visibility and the leadership as well. You have to be present and going to so many meetings and everything with government, as well as that, moving around the state, visiting all the police stations. There's 330 odd police stations around the state. We have people doing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different functions, from witness protection, terrorism, counter and violent extremism programs, to road safety enforcement, driver training. It is truly phenomenal, and sometimes when I'm talking to someone somewhere and they tell me, I'm saying, geez, I didn't even know we did that. That's how extensive the organisation is in terms of the different roles that you can perform here. So I think what I'll do now is just run through maybe a couple of the challenges that we're currently facing, and this is by no means an exhaustive list, because there are many challenges facing us as well, their own society. But in terms of recruitment and attraction, so if any of you are looking at joining, it's a fantastic job, we pay well. You might need to get a little bit older, but don't rule us out, I can assure you. But in terms of recruitment, we're about 700 less than we should have in our organisation in terms of sworn police. That's because post-COVID, where the 2.5 years of COVID that we had, no one wanted to retire. Police had very good superannuation. They then generally finish up and go travel overseas, but they couldn't go anywhere, so they all stayed on and all left en masse. And so we're now 700 under in terms of the strength that we have. So we're actually really working hard to get that back up. And our projections and everything like that, because you can't just come in today, you have to step through a whole lot of tests and everything. Our projections are that won't happen until the end of next year. So that's a real challenge for us. As well as mental health. In terms of mental health is obviously a pivotal issue right across society, not just in policing, but much it seems to be exacerbated in policing, and it's often not just that one incident, but a cumulative impact of a range of incidents over an entire policing career, or it could be triggered by workplace conflict, which is masked under that as well. But from our point of view, we have done a real lot of work to destigmatise the reporting of mental health and for people to speak out about mental health and how they're feeling. But coming with that has consequences, and so we have around 600 to 700 police officers currently who over the past 5 or so years have reported and stepped through the issues they're facing with, and they are off on work cover currently, trying to be rehabilitated and return to work or get them healthy so that they can move into a different career, a different phase of their lives. So mental health really is a pivotal thing for us. And so when I go back to talking about developing policies and all of those things, so we set about saying what can we actually do to stop this. And so we've developed a whole range of different things called mental health hubs, which we've put in our eastern and western regions across the state, where we have clinicians, psychologists, injury management consultants, educators to help firstly bring people back to work quicker, but to prevent them going off, so that we can train our managers to better recognise the impacts or the signs of mental health when it's starting to appear. Sadly and tragically, we have, on average, a couple of suicides a year from people who the pressure's just become too much for. Family violence, and these are just, as I say, some of the challenges. I'll just go through about 6 or 7, and then I'll speak about me briefly. Denise said that's the part I'd like to do best, but that's not actually true. Family violence is obviously an epidemic that's in society, and something that we're totally focused on eradicating. Victoria Police are world leaders in family violence in how we're responding to it. Some of the statistics are quite startling. The last crime statistics that came out were for the period from March, for the 12 months prior to that. And in that 12 months, we responded to around 94,000 family violence incidents in Victoria. That's 1 every 6 minutes. We arrested around 80 offenders for family violence incidents every day, 1 every 18 minutes. It's pretty astounding when you think about that. And we've totally focused on this, and if you remember, there was the Royal Commission into Family Violence in Victoria in 2016. As a result of that, we completely rejigged the way we go about things. We have 29 family violence units across the state that have around 400 people just totally dedicated to family violence. And I could talk about that for a long time. Rising crime statistics is obviously a real challenge for us, and we understand it's not just safety in the community, but people feeling safe. And for me, one of the biggest challenges we face is this nighttime sneak and aggravated burglary. It's when people are asleep at home and young kids, generally young kids, and I say that seriously, sneak in and steal cars and the keys and then drive up the highway at 150, 200 k's, and it's a recipe for disaster, and we've seen it happen. And that is an area of focus for us. The last financial year we had, I think it was a bit over 6,000 aggravated burglaries we had, and that was an increase of 900, so it was on the previous 3-month reporting period. So it is a rising crime that we're throwing everything at. We have an operation called Operation Trinity, which has 70 police with public order response teams, the Dog Squad, Airwood, detectives out every night, just focused on this crime, and we're apprehending huge amounts of offenders. We've, in the last 12 months, arrested 1,460 odd people, predominantly young kids, for this type of offending. But we've also arrested peripherally another 6,500 people for other offences out there at night, just because we're patrolling around. So that's a real key area for us. Gang crime is a significant issue for us. We started an operation which we tagged Operation Alliance, which is running for the last 12 months. It fluctuates between 40 and 44 predominantly youth gangs in Victoria, and they're made up, and they're often through friendship groups there, or it can be based on postcode, or sometimes nationality. There's a whole range of different areas as to what they come and group together for, but we have around 600 predominantly young children who are involved in those gangs, and we work with them. We have crime reduction teams that visit them and their parents and try and keep them from offending, as well as holding them to account. There's a whole range of other things that I could step through in terms of terrorism, non-fatal shootings, online child exploitation, and what they're doing, and file sharing of child abuse that we see on the dark net, knife crime. There's just so many things that Victoria Police either is supporting other agencies in or has responsibility for. But at its core, it's about community safety. And we're privileged to be able to do that and focus on that. I won't step, I'll stop all of that because I've got my timer on here in about 5 minutes, so I'm going to start talking about me a little bit. But basically, Victoria Police is there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we're one of the few agencies that has to respond to everything it does, and my members do an absolutely amazing job. It is the pressures they're placed under. And I remember a quote from Kevin Sheedy, for those of you football fans or whatever, and he said sometimes coaches forget what the game feels to the players on the field. And I've always remembered that. And so I go out each 3 or 4 months and drive around with the sergeant or out on patrol or whatever, just so that you get a feel and understand for the pressures that the members are under. And it is significant, but it also really sheds home how proud I am about what they're doing. So that's sort of a bit of a very quick snapshot of some of the things, just a couple of things that I get to deal with. But how did I get here? Well, I started out in the country in Seymour as just a country boy, didn't like the country, wanted to come down here, came down, became a police cadet, which meant you weren't old enough to be a real police officer, and so I got paid to do year 11 and then jog around the city for a few years and go and work at some police stations. Then I graduated and went out to training stations out of Brunswick, Russell Street, Coburg, and just worked the band and everything like that. And that's an important thing for me, that I've grown up from the grassroots in this organisation, so I understand it. And it's the thing about this job, there is nothing routine about this job. We see that when people respond to numerous different things. And I can recall it in my own career, and I won't go into these details because I don't want to upset anyone, but in my own career I can still remember vividly as a young constable at Coburg. And it's strange how you can remember these things, the different incidents that impact in your mind. One time Pentridge Prison was a prison back then, and driving down Sydney Road at night, and myself and the sergeant, this person was all over the road, and we pulled him over, drunk driver, great pinch on as a drunk driver, that's good. And it's this huge man, and he had a shovel on the back seat, all his beer cans in it, right, he's drunk, right, yeah. We searched the car, and opened up the boot, and there was a body of a male in the boot. He killed him, and then you step through your processes and all of that, and grab him, throw him, and then the homicide turn out and that. And other times when, and every police officer will talk to a million incidents. Other times when I've turned up at a house and someone's coming running down the hall and you didn't expect it, and they're pointing a gun at you and you think, do I shoot them? And it's not anything about bravado or anything, it's where you're trembling, your hands are shaking with your gun pointed at them and you're wondering whether you shoot them, and fortunately you don't have to, and then you stand there with your foot on them as you're trying to recover your breath and all of those sort of things and get back to being calm. I could talk about a million different things, as can any police officer. Why do I raise this couple of incidents? Just to give context that there is nothing routine in Victoria Police. Every car check we turn up at, everything, it could be a different scenario. Anyway, so I did the uniform stuff, and then I went and became a detective at St Kilda. In those days, St Kilda, the place was rocking and rolling, I can assure you. There was that much heroin there at the time, and that many heroin deaths. They were recording the deaths of heroin overdoses in the Herald Sun as if it was a road toll, because it was an epidemic. I was a detective there for 7 years and loved it. And then, you think you make a difference, but then, I don't know, something clicked and I thought, actually, I reckon I can do a bit more. I reckon I can get higher in this organisation. Might have been one or two people I looked at and said, I don't think you're that sharp and you're my boss. So, anyway, so then I started to do some study, some university stuff, etc. And then kept moving around and said, I'll make a conscious decision to diversify myself so I'm the most saleable or marketable or skilled than anyone else, because everyone sort of went into silos. So then I went into different areas, got paid for a couple of years to have my hair long and drinking pubs and special duty stuff. That was fantastic. Got promoted to a sergeant, did some uniform stuff. went and did prosecuting in courts where, you know, you did a 12-week prosecutor's course, you're up against one day some junior league layperson who you wipe the floor with, and the next day up against a Queen's Counsel who they wipe the floor with you. And so, but did the prosecution stuff to diversify, went to our internal investigations to understand how that worked, investigating and charging police, became an officer in charge of the police station at Prahran for a couple of years, went to our Transit Safety Division, which was responsible for transport safety on the trains and everything. Went out to our training academy and looked at redesigning the future of education and how we did that. Went to the traffic camera office, promoted as a superintendent, and so if you're getting tickets or anything, I was largely responsible for pushing out all those speed cameras up the highway and all of that, so drive slowly. But then went out to Dandenong, Casey Cardini as the superintendent out there, continued to get promoted. I also was fortunate to be the Chief of Staff at one stage, which is like, you know, the right-hand person of the Commissioner, and so that was to Simon Overland and then Ken Lay, and I was there when Simon resigned and then Ken took the role, so you learn a lot about that interaction with government. Promoted to Assistant Commissioner in charge of emergencies and counter-terrorism. Got to travel the world a bit and go to the FBI and a whole range of different things. Then Assistant Commissioner at North West Metro, so all of the city area, and which has all the crime and those major events, your grand finals and everything. And fortunately, I kept getting promoted and managed to get into this role. And as I said, it's the greatest privilege what I get to do. It's fun. It has its ups and downs, I can tell you. I mean, when you have people die on the job and you go and speak with their families, and then you have a workforce this morning, and just so many different challenges. But it really is a privileged position. So how do I unwind? I travel, go overseas, catch up with friends, exercise. Well, I used to exercise a lot more, but I took my hammy off the bone, but that's a whole different story. Stay grounded with friends. What would be my advice to the students here? I don't think there's any real benefit in saying don't take drugs, don't do this, don't do that, because young people explore and do things they shouldn't. My advice would be that you can do anything, but there's a consequence from what you do. And once you do something, you can't undo it. So just think very carefully about what you're doing, because you'll probably live with that for the rest of your life, especially in terms of the multimedia, mobile phone, camera everywhere scenario we're in at the moment. So one silly mistake can change your life. So think very carefully. You know, as I said, I won't sit here and tell you what to do. You should probably laugh at me like, boy, do you know you're silly old man. But your one consequence, think it through. What has policing taught me? The two things I think that I will take from policing, I can take a lot more than two. The two key things are resilience. That even if you think that something's done, it's too hard, you can't get through it, you won't be able to do that, you're feeling the pressures about going to do something or speaking somewhere or even putting in some piece of work that you think you'll never get finished or whatever. Just stick with it. Resilience is a very easy word to say, but that's what I've learned from policing, that if you stick at something and you continue doing it, you will get there. You'll surprise yourself how much you can do. So think of that resilience word, and if you want to, you know, I've always challenged myself and now sort of live by it. Be comfortable with being uncomfortable in what you do, because if you're comfortable, then you're just coasting along. So thank you.
thank you, Chief Commissioner, for speaking with us this morning. It is such a blessing to have you here and obviously to have so many of our amazed community here to celebrate our Father's Day event. Something that struck me, and I've got a page full of notes here as well, you mentioned a few key things that were actually our Emmaus College core values. And you spoke of service and community. And we spoke of community in the police force. That's at the core of what you do, and you lead such a large group, a workforce in that space. And then we're really trying to really build that community, and we can see here today it's evident in what we do here with our students and our parents as well. What I probably want to speak about, and you spoke there, and you're fortunate to be promoted. I think most of us hearing this today, you're probably not fortunate that you've done that you made the choice to go and deliver it, as you said. So before we hand it over here, one question I want to ask is, though, we're here to celebrate Father's Day. Can you talk to us around maybe some role models in your personal or professional life that maybe have shaped you into being the 23rd Chief Commissioner in Victoria?
Well, early on in my life, my parents became divorced, so my mother had to raise 3 boys who were a year apart or whatever, so that was, I don't know how she did that, having been a parent now, but she was very much a role model in terms of her work ethic and the way that she just continued to try and achieve the best she could for the family. But other than her, I can still remember when I was a young constable, and we had a sergeant, and this one sergeant had an interest in me. He taught me, he mentored, coached me, he had an interest, but he was someone who always conducted himself appropriately. He was a leader, and he had an interest in people, and he cared for people. I think that for me really shed home. And then I realised later on, and I always challenged myself because, and I challenge those who work for and with me to say, would you be comfortable in working for yourself? Would you like to come to work if you were the boss, the leader, or whatever? And I continually challenged myself that, and I did for this one sergeant. There were others, but he was just outstanding because he showed interest and he cared for people generally, and it wasn't just tokenism. And by showing an interest and making that commitment to people, I think it returns back to you in spades. So that'll do for me.
Thank you, Tony. That's a great example there around taking those opportunities again and reflecting on who you are as a person. We do have some time now for some questions from the audience here. So we do have Zoe, who is over here with a roaming microphone, and Warren at the back here. So if anyone would like to raise their hand, great opportunity now to speak to the Chief Commissioner and ask a question. We've got one over here with Zoe.
Obviously, there's a lot of awful crimes to deal with. What's the most satisfaction you've got out of solving it? Was it the result that made you feel satisfied?
There's probably a couple of one that I was directly involved in. I can still remember was a really complex series of aggravated burglaries. I was a detective back in the day and involved sexual assaults, and it was over Christmas time. And we managed to resolve that, and to give, it's a funky word, some closure to the victims. There's never closure or anything like that. But I think at a more senior level, one of the most satisfying is that I saw was involved in, or whatever, was when I was in charge of counter-terrorism, and we actually were working on these for younger people, 17ish, whatever, quite radicalised and to extremism in terms of they were going to commit a significant terms of crime. But it was in 2015, I'm going to say, when they were going to commit an attack on or about Anzac Day and use a knife to stab police and then get a gun and kill as many people as they could. And we, I can still remember, it was a very complex operation and everything, and then standing in an operations centre and watching, and we had listening devices and a whole range of things as you'd expect, and standing in our operations centre and watching our special operations group as they actually made the arrests with our air wing overhead and watching the whole thing from a technical perspective and to avoid any carnage. That was really significant to us because there could have been significant lives lost. So that was very good. Good outcome. No one else? Right.
Shane, just for all the students that are here, what's the pathway for them if they want to progress into the police force? What should they have? What are their minimum requirements?
Well, we used to say that we wanted everyone to go out and get life experience and all of that and push people till their mid-20s. That's where it was going and all that. But then we're losing a lot of people, good people who want to be police officers because by the time they'd gone out and developed a trade or whatever, they're making good money as well, and then didn't come back to us. And plus, it was sort of we were saying that so they would be mature, but then we realised that you can be mature at a young age. When you come out of school, you can be very mature still, and you will have been involved in a whole range of community commitments. You will have had part-time employment and everything like that. So we're now taking people, once they've had their VCE and things. And so, I think, and the beauty, as I said, about this job, it's not one job, it's just so many different things. From, as I said, I mentioned about being a detective, our mounted branch, dog handling. We even have remote piloted aircraft systems, drones, a drone unit where we have 7 people who get to wander around the state and put drones up and have them in a covert capacity and monitor public order and everything. It's just, we have surveillance people who do, when you have to put devices into places. We have people who follow people all around the state. We have undercover operatives. We have online operatives. It's just the best job. There's just so many options. Unpaid person.
Shane, I've got a question over here. In your day-to-day, you would see a lot of things that, as you've covered, that are challenging and would be very difficult to face for anybody, let alone having to deal with it every single day. You've probably seen the worst in humanity, but what has been an example of seeing the best in humanity? What's been a time that's stuck out for you that you've just seen that goodness come alive?
I think, and you're right, it's a really good point because you don't want to become jaundiced and just focus on the negativity. For me, out of adversity, we often see some quite amazing outcomes. We saw the deaths of members in numerous incidents, and when we do that, we will often have a huge outpouring of grief from the community and also from within the organisation. That's a tragedy in itself, but then the amazing support that we see from the community for the families of those police officers who passed, for us, and it's just the simple things. When we had a police officer in Mildura killed in a car collision about a year and a half ago, and then you have this outpouring of grief, and it's the simple things that I think are the most joyous. You have people of all ages and demographics coming into police stations and not bringing a cake or some biscuits with a card or whatever, saying thank you for everything you do and all of those things, and even from little kids who will bring in a drawing they've done saying it's so sorry and sad about what happened to a police officer and use their name. And so it's the simple things, I think, to me that really sheet home the joyous occasions, even though often they're out of adversity and sadness.
Oh, sorry, Chip. Question down here at the back. With everything that's going on in Victoria at the moment, how do you handle the pressures of the job, or what attributes do you draw upon?
I try and keep a balance. I used to run a lot, but as I said, I tore my hammy off the bone, so I'm not as good as I used to be on that. Just stay with friends. Most of my friends, nearly all of them, are not police. I made a conscious decision very early on in my career that my best friends would be outside of the organisation. So to them, I'm no one. They couldn't care less about it as fling and everything like that. I'm just Shane, and they keep you very grounded and measured and tell you exactly whether you're doing a good, bad, or a different job. But I think it's like teaching. It's like being a plumber. It's like being a carpenter. It's, I've trained all my life doing this, and you learn how to cope with it, whether it's compartmentalising things. I'm not sure whether that's healthy or not, or whether it's treating it differently, but we all react differently, and I just, from my point of view, I just take the approach, I control what I can control, and what I can't is outside of that, and you just make the best out of every situation, and also try not to take yourself too seriously as well.
Over your time, have you seen many changes in the media's reporting of crime? Possibly being a bit more sensationalistic? How do you manage that?
Okay, well, we could be here for a long time then, if that's... absolutely, it's very much changed. I mean, if you think about it though, the changing reporting of crime is totally different to now what it used to be. I mean, and that's because of the accessibility of the internet and everything. Back in the day, there never used to be mobile phones everywhere. And now we see someone takes a snapshot of some constable who's, this isn't being defensive, who's involved in a skirmish or an incident, and they snap a little incident, a little part of it, and that goes up on the media, but it doesn't show the totality of that constable is getting belted 2 minutes before that, and they've retaliated and belted them back. And so it is sensationalised. The media do a fantastic job. The Fourth Estate, as they're known, like very important group to us in putting out really positive stories as well. And we have great working relationships with them. But they will set their own agenda, and they have editors that set their own agenda. And Victorians are infatuated with reporting on crime. It's unlike in any jurisdiction in Australia. And that's okay, because it's so important, and I understand why. How do we manage it? Well, I try and get out our point of view as much as we can, but it's about context, and you might sit down and have a 1 hour interview with someone, and then they'll play this 3-minute snippet from here, and here, which is not the message you were sending, or whatever. And you go, yeah, I said that, but they didn't say all of this, which is contextualising that. So, how do you manage it? If you know the answer to that, I'd be making a lot more money, I think. From my point of view, what we do is we try not to put spin on stuff. From Victoria Police, I say, we're not, I'm not saying the government does this, but we're not a government, we're not another area. We just tell the facts, and so we just tell honestly what it is, and if we mucked up, we own it, and we say sorry and apologise and fix it and move on. We could talk about it for hours, but I still wouldn't be able to answer your question. I don't think, other than absolutely it's sensationalised, but also it is important the work that the media are doing in putting that out to the community. But feel for the young constable who's standing on the protest line as one of the, since the 7th of October last year, we've had, I think it's about 46 major demonstrations on a Sunday, afternoon from the State Library, ranging between 1,500 and 35,000 people who were protesting, predominantly pro-Palestinian, who were going up to Parliament House steps. We've had around 450 pro-Palestinian, predominantly rallies all up in that last year, and every week we have around 21 other issue-motivated groups that are protesting about a range of things. I was talking with Jackie Felgate on 3AW the other day, and I said people in Victoria would protest about the opening of an envelope. Really, it's quite amazing. I get that people are passionate about different issues, and they should be, and that's great. We're happy to facilitate peaceful protest. But think about the constable, back to the media question. He's standing there with people spitting on them, throwing missiles at them, staring at them, abusing them, as this brave person has got a mask on and has their face covered and is filming the constable, and the constable is being filmed with this far from their face, and then they suddenly push someone back, and there it is. That's the thing that gets reported on. So that's not being offensive, they're just facts. Media are very important, but we work with them and we just call the facts.
As you said, you dropped out in your teens. So how from there did you realising that policing was the way to go for you, and what is the thing you enjoy most about it that kind of keeps you in your job?
Thank you. Yeah, as I said, I left just to get out of the country, but once I got into it, very early days when I was a young constable, I just realised it just clicked. When you're telling people, when you're helping people, it's just an amazing. Policing is an amazing family. It is a family. The feeling of camaraderie and the culture within the Victoria Police of support is one that you can't emulate and you can't fake. And it is really a true blue family that supports each other. The ability to make a difference in people's lives on a range of things, and as you get higher up, that ranges from just individuals to progressive policy, strategic outcomes and all those things. So very early on I realised it was what I loved. And decided that I'd like to stay with it. I'm sorry, what was the second part to your question? Or was that it? That's it? So, thank you. But I just, I loved it and realised it was what I wanted to do.
I just have one more question from our student.
What's the most fun and exciting bit about your job that you do?
I go to meetings all day. No, that's not probably for me is when I can get to schedule and go out on the road each 4 months or whatever. It makes me feel like a real police officer again. I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago I managed to get out to Dandenong and walked into the police station, and the acting sergeant, he looked at me with, and I don't think she was actually thinking, I've got to work with the boss or she, you know what I mean? And then this young constable comes up and says, I'm the driver, boss. I said, no, I'm driving. He goes, oh, you're going to drive? I said, yeah. And to get out and just to feel like a police officer again, real as in, lieutenants of fire, traffic, some incidents and all those sort of things. To be out with, the most fun I have is when I'm out there with the staff, and getting a feel for it. But the most important thing for me is being able to make sure that I keep all of my staff as healthy and well as I can, to have the best conditions I can for them, and everything I say, that the only reason that we exist is for community safety. And so I continually challenge everyone in the organisation, if you're not doing something that's contributing to community safety, then you shouldn't be doing it. And that's probably my most important thing.
Before we conclude this evening, I'd like to invite Sam and Miranda back to the stage. stage to conclude the formalities of our morning together.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Firstly, we would like to thank everyone who has joined us this morning, staff, students and families. Our Father's Day breakfast could not have been possible without the people sitting in the chairs to eat the food. To our parents and carers in the room, we hope that you're back again for events throughout the rest of the year. Thank you to the team who have put this morning together. Ms. Wendy Williams, Ms. Denise McCann, our college property team, and the P&F for their support and efforts in organising this morning. Many of whom were here at 6 a.m. cooking our breakfast for you all. Thank you all. On behalf of all of us at Mayors College, we would like to extend an enormous thank you to our guest speaker, Chief Commissioner Shane Patton, for being so generous and sharing his story with us this morning. What a great inspiration for us and for so many people to look to you as a role model. We really appreciate you being here with us and we'd like to give you a gift in recognition of your time this morning. A few quick notes before we conclude is the Commissioner will be available for some photos if you would like to meet over by the Emmaus stand. And the Year 9 students, if you are heading to Burwood on the school bus, please head over there now and the buses will leave shortly. If your Year 9 families could be allowed to the front of the photo queue, that would be helpful, please. That brings us to the end of our 2024 Father's Day breakfast. Thank you for being here. Have a wonderful Friday and happy Father's Day for next week.
What are we doing with the photos, Dina?
I reckon